Welcome, everyone, to In the Spotlight. Joining me tonight is a truly talented artist who's as genuine and authentic as it gets, Josh Merritt. Josh, welcome to the show and welcome to the Spotlight.
How are you, man? Thanks for having me.
You know, any better, Josh, it would be illegal. That's what I would say. And I am happy to have you here in the Spotlight tonight because you definitely deserve to spend some time in the Spotlight. Got quite a few things that I want to talk with you about, but I thought we'd start out with just three little numbers that happen to be the name of your most recent album,
I bet it's
206. So, what's the
206.
story
Yeah.
behind the album and those three digits?
Man, it's a 206 is an angel number, actually. And I get this question a lot because it's kind of off the beaten path, and there's not a song called 206 specifically on the album or anything. But the album itself is a concept record, and I wrote all the songs on the record about a relationship, and it was kind of unknowingly. I was in this relationship for about 3 years. In the course of that 3 years, I had written lots of songs. And after the relationship had ended, like pretty long after the relationship had ended, I was going back through songbooks, and it occurred to me that I had documented this relationship. I had a song from like when we'd first gotten together. It was a love song, and there was a song in the middle where maybe things weren't going so great, and then there was a breakup song, and then there was a redemption song at the end, and so I pieced together, and I didn't mean to do it, but I was like, man, I've fully documented this relationship in song, and I said, man, that would make a great record, a great concept record. And so the numbers 206 is a number that the person that I was with, she used to see that number all the time, like very randomly. Like I think on our first date, we were out one time, and when I got the bill, the receipt said like 206 at the top of it, and she pointed it out, and we didn't spend much time talking about that, but she just said, "Hey, look, 206." And then I noticed that number coming up all the time. And a couple times in, I was like, "What's go? Why do you always point that out?" And she's like, "I don't know. This number follows me." She's like, "I see it all the time." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And so anyway, after we split up, I was actually doing a show in I think it was Iowa. But anyway, we had a day off on the road, and we went to see a palm reader, me and the guys I was with, just to have something to do. We were walking around downtown and seeing this place, and we went in, did all that just for fun. And I asked the lady, I was like, "What's the significance of 206?" And she looked it up, and it's a sign of encouragement. It's a sign of growth in the moment. It's a sign of learning, and it's a sign that you should take away something from what's happening when you see that number. And I thought, well, man, if that doesn't just encompass what this album's about, and also kind of Easter egg that little thing from our relationship, I said, I don't know what does. So it was the only title that worked for me.
Well, I have to tell you, Josh, what's so interesting about that is there used to be, I mean, I know a lot of artists still try to do it, but there was a time when albums, there was a theme, there was a story. It was
Yeah.
like a package, and each album sort of stood on its own as an artist would come out with it. But what I think is so cool is that you didn't have to like fake anything or pigeonhole. You had the story right there. It was already written.
It was, yeah. And my first record that we put out in 2020, Reynolds Station, it was also a concept record, and I meant to do that. I actually wrote most of the songs to be on the record. I knew the record that I wanted to make. Some of them I had kind of in the queue or whatnot, but several of them I wrote like after the fact, and made it a point to make a record like that. 206 wasn't like that. Just like you said, it was kind of all there. We just had to sculpt the clay once we got in the studio and put it together. So
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, it is the clay was sculpted well into I really do think it's a musical masterpiece. I really
thank
enjoyed
you very
all the
much.
songs on the album and also a couple of the videos that I've seen. In fact, there's one video in particular that now I know why. I think there's a hotel room scene where there's room 206. So that
Yeah.
wasn't an accident.
I see you hide behind yourself until you suffocate. Can't let it out, so you decide to keep it in. Honey, you know that you got something we should talk about, but you refuse, so baby, here we go again.
That room number is there, featured in the video. But I have to admit, I do have kind of a favorite of the songs, and that's The Path. It is so uplifting. I love the tempo. I love the melody. I love the message. So
Thank
what
you.
inspired that particular song within the album?
So that song is the last song on the record, and as far as the story goes on of the record, there's a reason for that. It was a redemption song that I wrote about. Again, I'm going through this breakup. I was a couple months out probably. I was really down in the dumps and just couldn't get back on my feet. And one of my very best friends, a lady named Stacy Foster, has been one of my best friends and my best fans and my best followers for 10 years. This lady's followed me all over God's green earth, just supporting me and supporting my music. And she's such a dear friend to me. But I've said this a few times. I think to call somebody a friend, it's not just somebody that pampers you and pats you on the back and tells you everything's going to be okay. That's important, don't get me wrong. But the true mark of a friend, I think, is somebody that can also recognize, like, hey, I know that you're hurting right now, but there is a time when you have to get back up on your feet and dust yourself off, and we have to move on. And you can be stuck in a hole for a long time if you don't continue to try to climb out. And she's like, I feel like you've stopped trying to climb out and you're just sitting in it a little bit. And that's what she did for me, and that's what I wrote that song about. She pulled up in my lane one day and she called me. She said, hey, I'm outside, come out here and sit in the car. She said, we're gonna go for a drive and listen to some music, and we got to talk. And Stacy's much older than me, and has a little bit more wisdom than I do, and so her words, they really mean a lot to me, just because of how close we are. And we drove, and she just told me, she's like, hey, I know you're hurting, and whatever you need. She's like, I know I don't feel your hurt, and I know it's easy for me to say, hey, get over it, because I don't feel the same way you do. But at the same time, I love you, and I want to see you do better, and I want to see you be better. And it's time to move on. It's time to figure out the first steps that we need to take to move on. And so that's what I wrote that song about.
What did she think about the song when it was done?
She absolutely loved it. And so the path, the way that came into play with that is, for as long as I've known her, she's had this thing where she would say, like, something would happen. And she would be like, well, this is the path that we're given. This is the path that God's given us. And she's like, bad things happen, good things happen, but there's all that along the path of life. And she would say that all the time anyway. So when I went to write the song, I thought, well, I've got to include that, because she says that all the time. And it ended up becoming the hook of the song.
Yeah, and I think that is, you just said it. There is definitely a hook. Like I said, the lyrics, the melody, it's upbeat, it's all of those things. And I think that anyone would be better off having that song on their playlist. And I'll tell you, I have multiple playlists on my phone. I have one for kind of inspirational songs. Then I have my fitness playlist for those 6 a.m. workouts. And The Path is on both of them.
Oh man, that makes me feel good. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to it.
No, you are very welcome. Because like I said, it definitely, I don't think there's a time that song can't help, wherever you are. And that's the beauty of music, and the beauty of a well-written song that also happens to have a great hook and a great melody. That never hurts.
Thank you
So
very
that's
much.
good too. No, absolutely. Now you mentioned your first album, which came out, I think it was in 2020, right? About 4
Yes.
years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so how
Great
would
time
you
to put a
say-
record out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Well, you know what? It was worth the wait. That's
Yeah,
the way I look at it. You
yeah, for
definitely
sure.
made the most of the time, that's for sure. But how would you say over the years, and I know you've been at this for about 10 years altogether full time, how would you say you've grown as a songwriter and as an artist overall?
Um, a lot, and interesting enough, so it took me, I'll give you the short version of this, but so I started recording Reynolds Station in 2017. We didn't end recording it until 2019. Now that wasn't because of some artistic thing or anything like that. It's because I was wanting to work with a professional studio for the first time and I used all session musicians on it. And I was doing that on I was wanting steak on a hamburger diet, is there, or a hamburger budget, as they say. So the only way to do that was I would have to go and because I financed the whole thing myself. And so I would have to, go work and play gigs for 3 or 4 months, and I'd save up just enough money to go do a session. I'd plan it up, go to Nashville, and I could pay for a day's session, so I would fit as much into one day as possible, and then it might be 3 or 4 months before I got back down there to do another session, and so it took forever to get that record done. And so I didn't get it done until 2019, and then it took a whole year to get it ready to put out, and then we went to put it out in 2020. We were going to put it out in March of 2020, and
Oh,
that's when the pandemic hit. So then I was like, man, I'm just never going to get this record out. And then so I sit on it. I was like, let's not put it out yet. And we waited until November. We put it out in November of 2020, and we said, hey, let's just do it. And it ended up being great because I didn't get to go tour on the record, but because everybody's sitting at home and on their devices,
yeah.
with nothing to do. That end of it ended up being great. We had a great, PR campaign that came out of it just because people were passing it along and stuff. And it was great. But to answer your question, so I didn't start recording that album until 2017.
Hmm.
Most of the songs I'd written before that. I'd written probably 2 years before that. So by the time I'd released those songs off of my first record, the songs on that record are over 6 years old, and not only had I grown as a musician, but as a songwriter exponentially. The stuff that I was writing as I put the record out, in my eyes, I love the songs on that record, but from a professional standpoint, in my own opinion of myself, the songs I had written and ready to record were 10 times better than the songs that I was putting out. So it was tough, that's a weird position to be in, but I was very proud of the record. So I wanted it to see the light of day and all that. But I think the difference, because a lot of people have told me, they're like, there's, Reynolds Station's great, but the songwriting is exponentially better on 206. And I think it's because there's no way to see it, but there's so much time in between those two records and the songs that were written on those records.
Yeah,
So
and people wouldn't even know the actual gap in time, and so you just explained it because of
there's
how
no way.
in advance you were writing the ones for Reynolds Station. So that is a pretty wide gap in time. And Josh, if there's one thing I've learned from talking with some of the greatest ever in the music business, is that you never stop growing. And I've had a lot of people say that whether they're in a songwriting session or in a recording session, they want to be the least talented in the room, so that everything gets elevated.
That's
from the final
1,000% true. That's 1,000% true, and it's something that's hard to wrap your head around at first, and again on that album Reynolds Station, I was green as a blade of grass. I still am in a lot of ways. I'm still learning every day, but man, I was green as a blade of grass recording that. I didn't know anything about recording, the process, anything. So I literally had my lifeline in the producer that I hired, who was a good friend of mine and who I trusted very much. But I learned so much. It took so long to record that record, but I learned so much in that time that when 206 came around, I had a much bigger part in being able to sit in the driver's seat of how that record was put together. So much so that I'm listed as a producer even on the record, as a co-producer on the record. So I had a much bigger part in how I wanted that to be put together and such, and how I wanted it to sound at the end of it. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like I said, it really is. It's a phenomenal album. I just happen to have one song I like just a little bit more than the others,
that's
as I
that's
mentioned.
good. That's a
But
good
yeah,
thing.
it's but they're all fantastic. Now, I know that in addition to the album that's been out, one thing that's another sort of common theme with you over the years is you work hard, and I appreciate as you were telling that story about your first album, it reminded me of people who work full time and then go to college at night, and it takes them longer. And you were putting this together, like you said, steak on a hamburger budget, but you kept at it.
Yeah.
You kept at it, right? So I have so much admiration and respect for that. And like I said, you're out there, you're performing, you're working hard, you're building a following, you're doing everything the right way. So what does the rest of 2024 look like for you in terms of music, touring? What do you got coming up?
We've been moving so much this year, and I think that's what we're going to continue to do. This next month is as busy as the rest of the summer has been, but I've got more of a local schedule this month, so I'm closer to home, and we kind of did that on purpose. I'm actually putting together some kind of a plan for some more recording, so it's time. It goes back to those saying I was going to say this a while ago. There's an old saying that they say you've got your whole life to write your first record, and you've only got a year to write your second one.
Yeah,
So, and that's the thing, you have to keep the momentum going so much. And so we're about 6 months out on 206 being out, and we'll have plenty of traction with that. Usually an album cycle is a year to 2 years, but we have to have something that's ready to rock at the end of that, and so
sure.
so I'm going to be playing a little bit closer to home and more in my home market the next month, to try to get that ready. I've got a meeting in Nashville tomorrow, actually, with the producer, and we're going to talk about maybe doing some recording together. Pretty excited. Pretty
Wow.
excited. All kinds of cool
Yeah,
stuff
that's
coming up.
fantastic. And it is amazing how you do have to kind of keep that momentum going. Whether it's your fans are hungry for more. Before we went on air, we talked about social media, and social media craves content. So
Oh
there's
yeah.
always more of everything. So I'm glad to hear that you're about to embark on the next thing, and I'm sure it's even going to be better than 206. So that's because again, you continue growing, you continue just honing your craft, and I think the possibilities for you are endless. So I got one last question for you, and it's not going to be about that hat that you're wearing. I did my best so far to not
I
say
know you
anything
like this
about that
hat. Come
Cardinals
on
hat.
now.
Yeah, yeah. Ever since 2011, when the Phillies had the best record in baseball, and you guys knocked us out in the divisional series, sorry, I can't deal with it. But anyway,
I understand.
yeah. So other than clearly being a Cardinals fan, what are, let's say, three things that you would want people to know about you who are watching us right
Oh, first and foremost, I'm a family man. I'm a girl dad. I've got one daughter of my own, and then I'm recently got engaged and have two stepdaughters now, or we'll have two stepdaughters, and lovely fiance, and I love my family so much. And actually, when I'm not playing music, that's all I do is I try to, because I mean music does take me away a lot, and
now?
I'm moving around. I'm lucky enough. It's very funny. I'm lucky enough that I am completely independent still, so I get to make my own schedule. So still, which is not that way for a lot of people that are out here just huffing it. Um, but because of that, I get to travel, and then I also get to plan time to be at home and things like that. So the number one thing would be my family. Um, I see number two. I love to fish. If I was trying to think of something outside of music, and it's here's the thing, it's honestly a new thing. I loved to fish when I was younger, and then I've been so busy the past 10 years. I just literally music has been my hyper focus, and in the past 6 months I've taken up fishing again, and just I've got a love for it. I've become one of those guys that carries a fishing pole, and I'll stop and just fish if I need to. So
I'm sure it's probably therapeutic for you at times too,
oh,
right?
I
Good
love it.
therapy.
It's quiet, man. It's quiet. I love it. I love to take the girls too. God, there's nothing like watching your 8 and 6 year old pull a fish in, you know, it's just, and just, oh, the excitement on their face. I mean, heck, I'd love to see my own face when I'm pulling a big fish in, you know, it's just something about it. There's something ingrained in us in hunting and fishing, and people that don't do it, I understand, but once you do it, once you're out into nature, something very, what's the word? Natural comes out in you. It's definitely in our DNA somewhere. So anyway, I love that. The third thing, let me think. Again, as far as just like a hobby or something outside of music, I love have a absolute love for comedy. I love the art of comedy. So it's not just the like that I love to watch specials. I'm just ingrained. I love the whole process. I love got several friends that do stand-up comedy, and just I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Josh, for what it's worth, I don't think there's a time in our lives when comedy is more helpful and more therapeutic now maybe than it's ever been, too. Kind of brings people together to have a chance to laugh together, just like music does.
It's so important, man. It's so important. Both are so important on kind of two ends of the spectrum a little bit, you know. Yeah, I can't get by without either one of them. So
yeah, good music and a good laugh makes for a good day. If you can hear a good song and get in a couple of good laughs on any given day, it's going to be a good day.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Josh, I'll tell you what, I thank you so much for taking the time with all you've got going on to join me here on In the Spotlight. And I will say that I think the path for you is clearly lit, and the possibilities for you are endless. I wish you all the best. And whenever you're anywhere near the Philadelphia area, we are going to come out and check you out and meet you in person, and look forward to having a conversation with you again down the road.
Thank you so much, brother. And it's been a pleasure being on here. I mean that. And I can't wait to meet you in person one of these days.
Sounds great. Folks, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Sometimes life can be hard, but we can talk about it. Pushing just a little too hard, well, I really doubt it. Come on, baby, sit in my car. We can talk until the sun comes up. And this is the path we've been given, whether walked, ran, ridden, or driven. Go ahead and don't wander around wasting one more day. Well, you feeling like a burned out star, or won't you quit your pouting? Don't you know that life's about more? You should get to counting all the blessings down in your heart and understand you got it better than most. This is the path we've been given, whether walked, ran, ridden, or driven. Go ahead and don't wander around wasting one more day. Everybody's hurting, it's different. I know you're feeling pain right now, but gratitude can make up the difference. Maybe we'll be the same somehow. Oh, oh. The path we've been given, whether walked, ran, ridden, or driven. Go ahead and don't wander around wasting one more. Oh, and this is the path we've been given, whether walked, ran, ridden, or driven. Go ahead and don't wander around wasting one more day.